Hello my dear students. So today we are discussing the most important chapter in ICSE class 10, the circulatory system. At first I give you some brief information about the circulatory system. Right? So at first we are discuss some briefly idea about the circulatory system. After we discuss some important question about the circulatory system. Can you hear me properly? Please write down in the chat box. Can you hear me properly? So today we discuss about the circulatory system from the ICSE class 10. So let's start. So at first I okay. So the circulatory system, the most important system in the human body. You know what is their most important function? The function of the circulatory system. Transport is the most important function of the circulatory system. But what type of substance are transported by the circulatory system? The oxygen are transported to the tissue. This is the most important function. Another important function are transport the carbon dioxide, because you know the carbon dioxide is harmful to our body, so it is required to eliminate or required to exit out from our body. But how it is possible? By the help of circulatory system. Another important function is transport of absorbed food. We take the food because we need the food for our survival, and this food ultimately transported in all over the body by the help of circulation. Another important thing is the transportation of the urea for the excretion. You know the human beings are the ureotelic organism. Urea is the nitrogenous waste material and it is harmful also, so it is required to eliminate, but this is transported the kidney or the excretory system. After that they eliminate from our body, but how it is possible? By the help of circulatory system, right? Transport the different molecules like hormones. You know the hormones are most important chemical substance in the human body, and these hormones also be transported by the help of circulatory system. Also the regulation of the body temperature, right? It is also important function of the circulation. And clotting of blood in case of injury, also it is happening due to the transportation or the circulatory system. So we have discussed the most important some function about the circulatory system. Now we have discussed the different parts of the circulatory system. You know the blood is the most important part of the circulatory system. Blood, what is blood? Blood is the fluid connective tissue, right? And what different components or constituent present in the blood? You know the blood corpuscles is there, red and white blood cells, and blood platelets is there. But these platelets and the blood corpuscles, where it is ultimately present in your blood? It is present or dissolved in the plasma. Plasma is the fluid part of the blood, right? So if we are there, write down the composition of the blood. So blood, ultimately the three important part is there: blood cells, blood platelets and the plasma. Blood cells, the two type of blood cells is there, that is the erythrocytes or the RBC and the leukocyte or the WBC. This is the two types, right? And leukocyte classify into the two types, in the granulocytes and agranulocytes. Please you bear in mind the neutrophils, eosinophil and basophils are belongs to the granulocytes. That means they have some granules in their structure. Agranulocytes means in their cytoplasm not granules is there. This is the two types is there. One is the monocytes, another one is the lymphocytes. right? Now we are discuss so leukocytes, it is a two type, that is the granulocytes and the agranulocytes. Granulocytes are the neutrophil, eosinophil and the basophil, right? And agranulocytes are monocytes and the lymphocytes. Now we are discuss the most important part, the plasma. Plasma, this is the liquid part of the blood and they are contain some insoluble component. But what is the most important insoluble component is present in the plasma? Most importantly, the albumin is there. Albumin is the one type of protein, but what is their function? It is present in the blood plasma. It is help to maintaining the osmotic concentration in your body fluids. Globulin, it is another kinds of protein. It is present also in the plasma. This is act as a antibodies. Antibodies, you know, this is a defensive protein is in your body. This is fight against the antigen. Also another important proteins is present in the plasma. It is the fibrinogen, right? This fibrinogen is takes the most important role in the blood coagulation or the blood clotting. So the plasma contain this insoluble three component, another some component also be there, but they have most important some function. But plasma have also some soluble component. A question is arise that what is the different soluble component present in the blood plasma? The glucose is there, you know, vitamins, minerals, amino acids and the urea is there, right? So this is the different soluble component. So plasma contains some insoluble component and some soluble component. Now we are discuss about the RBC. You know the number of total RBC. What is that? Please you bear in mind, this is the most important in your ICSE syllabus. 5 million mm cube, right? 5 million is there, and in the woman 4.5 million per mm cube. You know the decrease of the RBC number count, that time what type of disease are happening? When the RBC count are decrease, that time it is termed as the anemia. So what is happening in the anemia? The RBC count ultimately decrease, right? And on the other hand, sometimes you know the RBC count also be the increase. That time it is called the polycythemia. Anemia is the most important terms, but also bear in mind the polycythemia, right? That means the RBC count will increase. Clear? Now we go to the another important part about the RBC or the red blood cells. Red blood cells or erythrocytes, they have some important enzyme. Without this enzyme, the human beings cannot survive. So what is the most important enzyme is there? Carbonic anhydrase. But what is the important function or what is the significance of the carbonic anhydrase? You know the carbon dioxide and water react together and produce the H2CO3. But these chemical reactions are happening due to the presence of this enzyme carbonic anhydrase, right? In that particular enzyme is there, show the reaction rate is more faster. Without this enzyme, this reaction may be happening, but this rate is very, very low, right? Now we are discuss about the blood coagulation process. Blood coagulation, what is the mean by the blood coagulation? Blood coagulation takes place after blood oozes out from the blood vessels. Sometimes injury cases, the blood ultimately oozes out from your blood vessels, but it is required to coagulate. Otherwise, the total blood loss are happening in your body. But how the blood coagulation takes place? You know the thrombokinase and the thromboplastin, This is the most important two enzyme which is initiate the blood clotting. Thrombin occurs in the normal blood but in inactive globulin form. This is called the prothrombin. Prothrombin, this is present where? In your blood plasma, and it is the inactive form of the thrombin. So this is not active form. But what is happening in the blood coagulation process? I just discuss it in the diagrammatic view. You know, so prothrombin is there in the blood plasma and thromboplastin also be there. Thromboplastin first ultimately convert to prothrombinase. Prothrombinase are act on the prothrombin and convert to the thrombin with the presence of the calcium ion. I already tell you, in the blood plasma the contain the fibrinogen. Now the fibrinogen are react together with this thrombin and finally the fibrin are produced, right? Fibrin. This is help to clot the blood. Another important substance are used as an anticoagulant. Sometimes in the dialysis case, the blood ultimately taken out from your body. But when it is taken out from your body, that time it is coagulate. But how this is prevent to coagulate? That time some anticoagulating agent are just mixing with the blood. When they are came out in your body, some special cases also, right? The example of anticoagulant is the heparin. Now we discuss the importance of the blood groups. But how the blood group ultimately happening, why the different blood group is there in the human beings? You know, the red blood cells. Red blood cells and their outer membranes have the different kinds of antigen. According the presence of the different kind of antigen, we are classify the blood group. 4 types of blood group is there. Blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB and blood group O is there, right? So in the case of blood group in the case of blood group A, that time you know the antigen present in the RBC is the A antigen, right? And in the case of B blood group, that time the antigen are present is the B antigen. And in the case of AB blood group, that time the AB antigen are present. But O blood group, that time no antigen is present in the RBC. So RBC that time are free. No antigen is there, right? But that when these antigen are present in the RBCs, some antibodies also be there. Antibodies are present in the plasma, like anti-B in the case of blood group A. In the case of B blood group, the anti-A antibody is present in the plasma. And AB blood group, that time the no antibodies is there in the blood plasma. Sometimes you know we are called the blood group as like the A positive or B positive. But what is the mean by this positive? This positive ultimately came from the Rh factor. This is associated with an antigen protein present on the RBC. Already we know that the A, B antigen are present on the RBC membrane, but another kind of antigen protein are present also in the RBC. If this is antigen protein are present, that time it is called the Rh positive, and if not present in the RBC's membrane, that time it is called the Rh negative. And this Rh ultimately came from the rhesus monkeys. From this name it is called the Rh. And the most important pumping organ of the circulatory system is the human heart, right? So now we are discuss about the human heart. Human heart are located in your thorax region. It is 4th chamber right? A muscular organ consisting of the two artery, or also it is called the auricles, and the two ventricles is there, right? Also the two ventricles is there. The heart is protected by a double membrane covering structure. This covering structure are called the pericardium, right? But in between the two pericardial membrane, a fluid is there. This fluid are called the pericardial fluid. Pericardial fluid. The auricles are thin wall as they receive the venous blood from the body. On the other hand, the ventricles have the thick muscular walls, and these have to pump the blood to the lungs and the body with the greater force. This question is most important in the ICSE syllabus. Why the ventricles have the thick muscular walls? That time you write down, because they pump the blood to the lungs and the body with the greater force, right? This is the most important. The two auricles ultimately contract simultaneously and deliver the blood into the two ventricles, right? This is the right ventricle and this is the left ventricle, and this is the auricles, right auricles, and the left auricles is there. And between right between the auricles and ventricles, some valve is there, right? Between the right auricle and right ventricle, in here one valve is there, that is the tricuspid valve, and in here it is called the bicuspid valve. So the left aperture has the bicuspid valve or the mitral valve, and the right side they have the tricuspid valve. On the other hand, the pulmonary artery and the aorta, it is have also a one type of valve, it is called the semilunar valve. So in our body, if you categorize the valve, it is the two type, cuspid valve and the semilunar valve, right? Cuspid valve are the two types, tricuspid and bicuspid, and semilunar valve, it is a two type, pulmonary semilunar valve and aortic valve, right? During each heartbeat, the chambers of the heart contract and relax. This contraction and relaxation are called the systole and diastole. The contraction are called the systole and the relaxation are called the diastole. So, the movement of the cardiac chambers are repeated in a cyclic manner during the each heartbeat, and this event in each heartbeat consists of a cardiac cycle, right? This cardiac cycle is most important because during the cardiac cycle, blood flow through the cardiac chamber in a specific manner and a direction. Most important one phase is there when both the auricles and ventricle are in the diastole stage. They are in relaxed stage. That time it is called the joint diastole. This is that time it is called the joint diastole. Pacemaker. What is the pacemaker? You know, the heartbeat are originated in a specialized muscles. It is present on your heart. This is called the sinoauricular nodes. Sinoauricular nodes. But in short, it is called the SA node. It is called the pacemaker. They ultimately originate the heartbeat. But sometimes, you know, the sinoauricular nodes or SA node do not act properly. They become the damaged or defective. So what is happening? The heartbeat not properly are happening. That time the artificial pacemaker are inserted into the heart for their proper function, right? This is called the artificial pacemaker. Double circulation, it is also very important. What is the mean by the double circulation? You know that double circulation means the blood passes through the heart twice before it is pumped to the body. So it is called the double circulation. One is the pulmonary circulation, another is the systematic circulation. Two types of circulation are happening in the human body. So it is called the double circulation. Now we are discussing very briefly the electrocardiogram. You know, the cardiac impulse, right, spread over the cardiac chamber and cause their contraction. An electrical change sweeps ultimately over the cardiac chamber in the specific sequence. But this change of the electrical potential over the heart can be recorded by fixing the leads in the two arms. The left legs and the chest, and connecting them to a apparatus called the electrocardiograph, and the record is called the electrocardiogram. This is a full form of ECG. It is the most important question in the ICSE syllabus. You know that if any defect in the cardiac function, and it is also reflected in your ECG pattern. In our body, two type of blood vessels is there. Three types of blood vessels is there: arteries, veins and capillaries. But most importantly, it is the two types, arteries and veins. But what is the most important function, and what is the difference between arteries and veins? Artery are the thick wall structure, vein are the thin wall structure. In the artery, you know, the narrow lumen is there and the vein, the wide lumen present, and walls are muscular and elastic in the case of artery. On the other hand, veins, the walls are thin and the inelastic in nature. In the artery, no valves. On the other hand, the pockets valve are present, which is prevent to the backward flow of blood. Blood flow with the jerk in the artery, but veins blood flow without jerk. This is some important difference. So what is the main blood vessels in your body? You know, blood circulates in the body. The main arteries and veins are generally named after the origin to receive or given out the blood. Most commonly, it is the aorta. Aorta is the main artery which is leaving the heart, right? Please you bear in mind the aorta. Now we will discuss some important question from this chapter. Number 1, write the odd one in the each of the following: Purkinje fiber, AV bundle, AV valve and the SA node. Which one is the odd one out, right? In that particular case, the AV valve is the odd one out, because you know the Purkinje fiber, SA node and also the AV valve and AV bundle or AV node are related to the pacemaker and the contraction related to heart. But you know the AV valve, because they are ultimately related to conduction of the waves of contraction, right? So is the odd one out. Next important question is that mitral valve, tricuspid valve, seminal valve and the venous valve. The venous valve, it is not associated with the heart, so it is the odd one out. Next question, the aorta, pulmonary artery, carotid artery and the dorsal artery, which one is the odd one out? In that, pulmonary artery is the odd one out, because you know the artery generally transport the oxygenated blood, but in the case of pulmonary artery, it carries the deoxygenated blood, right? So the next question, the phase of the cardiac cycle in which the auricles are contract, this is called the auricular systole. So I already tell you the agranulocytes. This is a type of leukocyte, but which one is the example of agranulocytes? The lymphocytes and monocytes are the example of the agranulocytes. Give 1 point of difference between the RBC and WBC is regard to their structure. RBC are round and biconcave shape. On the other hand, you know that WBC are the amoeboid shape, or it is called the shapeless. The average life of the red blood cells is about 120 hours. It is true or false? It is ultimately false. Please you bear in mind, this is the most important question in the ICSE syllabus. You know the average life of the RBC cells, that is 120 days, not the hours. So it is false. Another important question, that is a pulmonary vein. It carries the oxygenated blood. It is true or false? Pulmonary vein, always, ultimately, you already bear in mind, vein, they are carry the deoxygenated blood, right? But pulmonary, the opposite function is there. That means the pulmonary veins, they carry the oxygenated blood, opposite function, right? So it is true. Name the vein in the human body which carries the oxygenated blood. Veins carries oxygenated blood, so it is the pulmonary vein. Name the artery which carries the deoxygenated blood, that is the pulmonary artery. This is the most important difference also. What is the difference between pulmonary artery and pulmonary veins, right? Next question, what is blood? Blood is a connective tissue with fluid matrix. Fluid matrix is there, right? This fluid matrix are called the plasma, and they are contain the erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets suspended in the plasma. Next question is there, what are the walls of the ventricle? This is most important question. Why are the walls of ventricle are thick? You know the ventricles have the thick muscular walls as they have pumped the blood into the various organs in the greater speed. So they have the thick wall. Next important question, what is the other term of the extracellular fluid? This is called the lymph, right? And what happened to ventricles when the auricles are contract? When the auricles are contract, generally you know the ventricles expand to receive the blood from them. What are the pacemaker? It is ultimately a patch of modified heart muscles which initiates the wave of contraction of the heart. This is a very important 1 marks question. Now we are go to the section 2 short answer type question. First question, explain briefly how the counting pulse is the counting of the heartbeat. What is the relation behind them? You know that every time heart contract for pumping the blood, it is required, and the blood flow with the pressure causing the pulse in the arteries. Therefore, the counting pulse is the same as the counting of heartbeats. So when we try to understand the count of the heartbeats, that time we ultimately count the pulse, right? Next question is that name and state the position of any two valves in the human heart. We already know that the mitral valve and the tricuspid valve are located between the left atrium and the left ventricle, and the tricuspid valve are located between the right atrium and right ventricle. Please you bear in mind that this is the bicuspid and tricuspid, but where the located unit is in your heart, it is also be write down in here. Long answer type of question. This figure is most important. The figure below represents the human heart in one of the phase its activities. এখানে আমাদের কি বলতে হবে? Name of the parts 1 to 6. দেখো this one is the parts, that is the pulmonary artery. Number 2, this one is the dorsal aorta. This 3 number part, it is the pulmonary vein. 4, this one is the 4 part, that is the left atrium or the left auricles is there. And the 5 part, this one is a 5 number, right? This is the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. And the 6 number in that particular position, it is called the right ventricle. And second part of the question, it is the what do the arrows indicate in a general way? This one we are given this different type of arrow, but what is indicate them? And they indicate the flow of blood in and out to the heart. Third question, what part or the parts of the heart are contracting in this phase? Contracting, that means the systole are happening, the right and left ventricle in that particular region, there the contraction is there. And the next question is, how many valves in this phase are closed? How many valves? The two bicuspid and the tricuspid valve are closed in that particular time, and only the semilunar valve and open this particular phase. Next question, what type of blood flow through the parts marked 1 and 2? From the one part the venous blood are flow, and the part 2 the arterial blood are flow. Next question, also very important question, the diagrammatic representation of the certain category of the blood vessels, right? Name the kind of blood vessels shown here. Particularly in that name of the kind of blood vessel are shown. It is ultimately veins is there, you know the valve, right? Next question, what is the structure shown inside the blood vessels? Semilunar valve is there, right? What is the role of this structure? What is the role of this valve? They ultimately prevent to black flow of the blood. Next question, are this structure present in any other kind of blood vessels? If so, name it. Yes, also in the lymph vessels. Towards which side of the figure, top or bottom, is the heart is located? As like you direction of the flow show the top in that particular position, the heart is present. Next most important question, label the parts given and the diagram the below. This diagram is most important. Fill in the brackets space and give the main function of the each. Right? Name the two structural difference between H and the I. Right? Show number 1. A, the labeling is the outer wall. This is the tunica externa. B, right, it is called the tunica media. C, it is a tunica intima or the endothecium layer is there, right? Next, D picture is there, that is the tunica externa. E is the tunica media, and the F is the endothecium. And in particular picture G, it is the endothecium, and this H picture is a TS of artery. Please write in the TS transverse section, TS of veins and TS of capillaries, right? And part 2 of this question is there. Fill in the brackets the space given in the main function of the each. So what is the function of the artery? Artery mainly transport the oxygenated blood, right? What is the main function of the vein? They transport the deoxygenated blood. And what is the main function of the capillaries? They help to exchange the gases, right? Next question, the diagram below show the different type of blood cells. This one is the RBCs, and this is also with the RBCs sectional view. Number C is the basophil structure. Number D is the neutrophil structure. Number E is the lymphocyte structure. Number F is the monocytes, and number G is the eosinophil, and H is the platelets. This picture is most important, please you bear in mind. Next question, difference between the blood plasma and serum. This is the most important question. What is the difference between the blood plasma and the serum? You know the blood plasma is the blood excluding blood vessels and the platelets, while the serum is the blood plasma excluding the fibrin, alright, without fibrinogen protein. Next question, distinguish between the following pairs in words. Number 1, the mitral valve and the semilunar valve. Where it is present, mitral valve located in the left auricle and left ventricle. Semilunar valve are present in the base of the aorta, in the pulmonary artery and the aorta. It is prevent the backflow, regulate the flow of blood from the left atrium to left ventricle, and the semilunar valve prevent to backflow of blood from the aorta to the pulmonary artery. Next important difference is there, pulmonary circulation and the systematic circulation. Pulmonary circulation, it is ultimately constitute the supply of blood to the lungs. On the other hand, systematic circulation, it is constitute the flow of blood to the body. Next of one, the blood is pumped by the right ventricle. The blood is pumped by the left ventricle. And what is the difference between the diastole and systole? You know, the diastole means the condition of the heart when the chamber are relaxed, diastolic condition, and the systole means it is the condition of the heart when the chamber of the heart are contract. On the other hand, you know, the diastole, it is the condition when the blood entered the chamber. On the other hand, systole, it is the condition, that means the contraction are happening. That time the blood is pumped out to the heart. Next important question is the difference between the blood and the lymph. You know, the blood is a fluid that flows the blood vessels in the blood vessels. Lymph, it is a fluid which is flow in the lymph vessels. Blood contains the RBCs, WBCs and the platelets, and you know, the lymph, they contain only the soluble parts of the plasma and WBCs but no RBCs. Blood contain the albumin, globulin and fibrinogen protein. On the other hand, the lymph does not contain this type of protein. Next important question, name the blood vessels entering the kidney and the one leaving it. Give three difference and the composition of the blood in these two blood vessels. One is the renal kidney related, that means the renal veins and renal artery. Has the less urea in the case of renal vein, and renal artery has more urea, has less oxygen. In the less renal artery, the more oxygen is there, more carbon dioxide is there in the renal vein. On the other hand, renal artery has less carbon dioxide. This is the most important difference also. Now we have discussed some previous year question, and this is the most important part in the ICSE exam. Name the process by which the leukocytes squeeze out through the wall of the capillaries. That time the WBCs ultimately squeeze out from the capillaries. That time it process is called the diapedesis. Diapedesis, right? Name the respiratory pigment in the human blood. It is a hemoglobin. Fill in the blanks with the function of the following. Blood platelets, what is their function? It is a function is the blood clotting. Neutrophil, what is the function of that? Neutrophils, their function is the phagocytes. Phagocytosis, that means the engulfing of the bacteria. Coronary artery is the heart, and hepatic artery, you know, it is the liver. Hepatic, hepatocytes, that means it is the liver related. Valve is the atrioventricular valve, and duct is the closing of the semilunar valve. Valve and duct, this is a two heart sound. And the valve present between the left atrium and left ventricle, it is called the bicuspid valve. Very easy question. Next question, name the following. Next question we have discussed, that is the name of the following. The process by which leukocytes engulf and destroy the bacteria, the processes are called the phagocytosis. The soluble protein present in the blood plasma, it is the fibrinogen protein. The blood vessel supplying the blood to the kidney, this is the renal artery. And this following the simplified diagram outline of the circulation of the blood, right? So several hours after a meal, the containing a lot of protein, which vessels will contain the highest concentration of the artery, which vessel are contain the highest amount of urea. Which blood vessels? Right? Number 1, it is the hepatic vein. Next question, which vessels would contain the highest concentration of amino acids, glucose soon after a meal? This is the 4 part, that is the hepatic portal vein. This is the hepatic portal system is there. Next question. Question number 3, which vessels begin and ends of the capillaries? It is the hepatic portal vein. Question number 4, which vessels will contain the smallest number of RBCs as per unit volume of blood? Hepatic vein. And in which vessels will the blood carry the most oxyhemoglobin? That is a pulmonary vein. Next question, difference between the arteries and veins in direction of blood flow according to the direction of the blood flow. You know, the artery, the blood flow away from the heart. In the vein, the blood flow towards the heart. And why are capillaries is a thin wall? Already I tell you, the capillaries are thin wall because it facilitates to exchange of the material. You know, the gaseous exchanger takes place in your lungs, in the alveoli, because in that particular part the capillaries is present. Next important question, the element required in the clotting of blood? Element, right? Not the protein, it is the calcium. The blood vessels leaving the left ventricle of the mammalian heart is called the left aorta or the aortic arc. Name the blood vessels which supply the oxygenated blood to the liver. This is the hepatic artery. Choose the correct alternative in the form the fill in the blanks. The wall of the heart is made up of which type of muscle? This is made up of cardiac muscle. Difference between RBC and WBC based on their function. RBC help to transport of the oxygen and carbon dioxide. On the other hand, WBC, their function is the protection against the body, against the antigen or the foreign particles. Now we have discussed the figure A, B and C is the 3 figure is there. Which kind of blood vessel is shown in the A? And write any 2 characteristics of such vessels. These blood vessels ultimately called the capillary. It is made of the squamous epithelium and it is very thin, which help to exchange of gases. Question number 2. Name the 2 kind of blood cells shown in A. Right? In particular, RBCs and WBCs are shown in here. RBC and WBCs is there. Next question is that the question number 3, describe the step by step what happening in the 3 figures. What is happening in there? First of all, WBC creeps out with the help of pseudopodia, and the WBCs ultimately extend with the pseudopodia around the germs. After that, it is engulfed the germs, so the phagocytosis are happening in there, right? Now we have discussed the most important main function of the mitral valve. It is regulate the flow of blood from the left atrium to the left ventricle. And second most important function, valve of the walls of veins. The veins, in there the valve is there. This is prevent the backflow of the blood. And the name of the vein which entered the liver, most important question, it is the hepatic portal vein. Clear? So this is some important question in your ICSE syllabus. In one shot I discussed the whole chapter, and also we discussed some most important question, right? So thank you very much all of you. Thank you.